The walls of the city are 7 miles in circumference. There are 2 gateways facing east, and 1 gateway facing in each of the other directions. Around the outside of the city walls, there is a very large moat. This is spanned by big bridges. On either side of every bridge, there are 54 stone deities. They look like stone generals, huge and fierce looking. From the king down, the men and women all wear their hair wound up in a knot and go naked to the waist, wrapped only in cloth. Only the king can wear material with a full pattern of flowers on it. On his head, he wears a gold crown. Sometimes, he goes without a crown and simply wears a chain of fragrant flowers, such as jasmine, round the braids of his hair. On his wrists and ankles, and all of his fingers and toes, he wears gold bracelets and rings, all of them inlaid with cat's eye gemstones. He goes barefoot, and the soles of his feet and palms of his hands are dyed crimson. When he goes out, he has a gold sword in his hand. The soldiers, too, go naked and barefoot. In their right hand, they carry a lance, and in their left, a shield. They have nothing that could be called bows and arrows, body armor, helmets, or the like. I have heard reports that when the Siamese attacked, all the ordinary people were ordered out to do battle, often with no good strategy or preparation. As a result of repeated wars with the Siamese, the land has been completely laid to waste. The local people who know how to trade are all women. So when a Chinese goes to this country, the first thing he must do is take in a woman, partly with a view to profiting from her trading abilities. There is a market every day from around 6 in the morning until midday. There are no stalls, only a kind of tumbleweed mat laid out on the ground. There are a lot of effeminate men in the country who go around the markets in groups of a dozen or so. They frequently solicit the attention of Chinese in return for generous gifts. It is shameful and wicked. Inside the East Gate, there was a barbarian who had sex with his younger sister. Their skin and flesh stuck together, and after 3 days without eating, they both died. Such, then, is the spiritual power of the Holy Buddha in this country. I have often heard that the local women are very lascivious. If a husband doesn't meet his wife's wishes, he will be abandoned right away. If the husband happens to do work far away for more than 10 nights, the wife will say, "I'm not a ghost. Why am I sleeping alone?" This is how strong their sexual feelings are. When they are 7 to 9 years old, if they are from wealthy homes, or only when they're 11, if they come from the poorest families, girls have to get a Buddhist monk to take away their virginity in what is called zhentan. The parents have to choose a Buddhist monk. On the night in question, a big banquet is laid on for the relatives and neighbors. At dusk, the monk is met with palanquin, parasol, and drums and brought back to the house. I have heard that the monk goes into a room with the girl and takes away her virginity with his hand, which he then puts into some wine. Some say the parents and neighbors mark their forehead with it. Others say they all taste it.
So this strange report about Buddhist monks and young girls comes from a record of Cambodia written by Zhao Daguan. He was a Chinese diplomat who had been sent by the Mongol ruler of China, Temür Khan, to explore the Khmer Empire. He sailed from Ningbo up the river and arrived at Angkor Wat, then the capital of the empire. The Mongols under Kublai Khan did attack this empire, but Jayavarman VIII was able to keep their independence. But the Khmer had to pay tribute to the Mongols to maintain peace, and Jayavarman also converted the empire back to Hinduism, breaking from Buddhism. But Zhao did not seem to pick up on any of the Hindu practices while he was there. However, when Zhao arrived in Angkor, Jayavaram had already been ousted by his son-in-law, Indravaram III, and Indravaram switched the religion of the empire yet again, making Buddhism the state religion. As for the ethnicity of this empire, the largest group was, and still is, Khmer, but there were also Malayan Chams, who could be subdivided once again to describe the mountain Chams. However, which group he refers to next is still up for debate.
There are two kinds of savage. The first know how to deal with people and talk to them, and are sold into the towns as slaves. The second are uneducated and cannot communicate in words. The second kind have no homes to live in, but move from place to place in the mountains, taking their family with them, and carrying a clay pot on their heads as they walk. By nature, they are very ferocious. Their herbal concoctions are highly poisonous, and within their own groups, they frequently kill each other. Family slaves are all savages purchased to work as servants. Most families have 100 or more of them. A few families have 10 or 20. The savages are people who come from the mountains, commonly called thieving chuang. When they come to the city, none of them dares go in people's homes. They are so despised and are only allowed to sit and sleep under the house. If they do something wrong, they are beaten and take their caning with heads bowed, not venturing to move even a little. Sometimes, slaves run away. Those that are caught and taken back must carry a dark blue tattoo on their face, and sometimes an iron shackle around their neck or between their arms and legs. If there is a dispute among the ordinary people, it must be referred up to the king, even if it's a small matter. There are never any whippings or floggings. Instead, they dig a ditch in the ground, put the criminal inside, and leave it at that. Otherwise, people have their fingers or toes amputated or their nose cut off. If a husband finds out that his wife has committed adultery, he has her lover's feet squeezed between two pieces of wood. When he is unable to bear the pain, the lover gives the husband everything he owns, and only then can he get his release. Given this practice, sometimes things are set up to defraud people. When a family catches a thief, they can impose their own punishment, whether it's detention, torture, or beating. There is, however, one standard practice if someone won't own up. They heat some oil in a cauldron until it is extremely hot and make the person concerned put their hand in it. If they are a thief, their hand turns putrid. If they are not, their skin stays the same as before.
So here we obviously see some of the punishments that were dished out to criminals. But before going on to the next section, I should include some other things that he mentioned. For instance, he talks about how 300 to 500 palace women would carry lances and shields and lead the king's parade in front of the guards. They in turn would be followed by ministers on elephants and finally the king. Otherwise, although he advised every Chinese person should get a Cambodian woman, he also said that they aged very quickly. He also describes how the king had a sacred piece of metal embedded into his body, which he believed would protect him against any arrow or blade. All of this has been subdivided into various categories, like the birds and local animals settling disputes, leprosy and other illnesses, and a bunch of others, and I have slightly changed it around a bit just so it sort of flows a bit better. And in this next section, he talks about the annual events.
In the first month of the year, when night comes, the king is invited to come out and watch. He lights the fireworks and firecrackers. The fireworks can all be seen over 35 miles away. All the officials and members of the royal family give their share of huge candles and spend a great deal. Things go on this way for 15 days. Every month, there is always an event. For example, in the 4th month, there are ball games. In the 7th month is the time for rice burning, when new rice is burned, as an offering to all the Buddhas. Countless women in chariots and on elephants come and watch. In the 8th month, there is Alan, a dance that selected female dancers perform daily in the palace. There are boar fights and elephant fights as well, and the king invites foreign envoy spectators. Previously, gallbladders were taken from people in the 8th month in response to an annual demand from the king of Champa, perhaps 1,000 or more of them. At night, men were sent out in many directions to well-frequented places in town. When they met people, they snared their head with a rope and took out their gallbladder by sticking a small knife into their lower right side. The only gallbladders they did not take were those of the Chinese, since one year they took one from a Chinese and put it in with the others, only to find that the gallbladders in the urn all turned rotten. The people of this country are frequently ill and can often cure themselves by immersing themselves in water and repeatedly washing their head. At the same time, there are a lot of lepers. They are everywhere on the roads, and the local people think nothing of sleeping and eating in their company. Out of every 10 people who contract dysentery, 8 or 9 die. There are witch doctors of some king that give people their help. It's really quite amusing. When people die, there are no coffins. The body is just kept on a kind of bamboo mat and covered with cloth. 2 dishes are filled with fried rice, and this is scattered along the route. The body is carried out of town to a remote, uninhabited spot where it is thrown down and left. After that, vultures, crows, dogs, and other village animals come and eat it.